you haven't saved any of them.
A fresh new episode of It, Welcome to Derry just dropped, and it's time for our weekly Derry visit. The episode marked one of the show's biggest revelations, explaining the connection between Robert Bob Gray, Pennywise, and Ingrid Kersh. Now, as far as the novel goes, King stated that Bob Gray is just a human alias It took, and it's not until chapter 11 that we come to know about Mrs. Kersh. When Beverly Marsh went to visit her former home, she was greeted by an old woman who soon grew creepy and said Bob Gray was her father, who worked in a circus. This has been adapted in the movies as well, but the HBO series is going into the depths of it all. Bob and Ingrid's identities have always raised questions in our minds, and it's time to address them. Was Bob indeed a human who fell victim to it? And most importantly, is Ingrid truly human Bob's daughter, or just a creation of the creature to manipulate children? Time to turn the theory wheel! Bob Gray was indeed a person. It was indeed a master of shapeshifting, able to take any and every form. However, we all know that Pennywise the Dancing Clown was its favorite appearance. Now, I have a feeling that the idea of dressing up as a clown to lure children into the sewers didn't spring from thin air. For the sake of an argument, let's believe that Ingrid was telling the truth to Lily. That would mean Bob was indeed a circus worker in the 1900s who became famous and loved among children as Pennywise the Dancing Clown. Back then, the name Pennywise had nothing to do with the ancient malevolent entity and referred to a simple man who worked hard to make children laugh. A couple of episodes back, we saw a young girl dressed as a clown in the circus, and it turned out to be none other than Bob's daughter, Ingrid, or Periwinkle. The duo performed together till things took an unexpected turn. Bob Gray disappeared one day, most likely during the 1908 hunting cycle of It. Ingrid believed that her father was snatched from her, and that he was still alive somewhere. When she started working as a nurse at Juniper Hill, the woman figured that Bob was trapped by something that stole his persona. Strengthening her belief, she caught a glimpse of her father struggling and asking for help. I'm inclined to believe that, Ingrid. See, we never really learn anything about Bob's wife, neither in the novel nor the films. Thus, it's easy to assume that the man lost his wife for whatever reason. Not just his wife. There's also been no mention of any of his family members or friends. So he was left alone to bring up Ingrid all by himself, toiling every day to put food on the table. Understandably, Bob was not in the best mental condition. Even if you look closely at his old photographs, he doesn't seem very happy. Of course, that made him the perfect target for It. The Cosmic Devil observed and knew that using Bob's identity as Pennywise would allow him to pass off easily and abduct children, who were fond of the dancing clown. That would mean that Bob Gray was actually taken hostage by the entity, and his Pennywise stopped existing. Pennywise now became It's go-to form. However, it's unlikely that It would keep Bob alive and trapped all these years, so what Ingrid saw in the asylum was just a mind trick. The trick worked its charm, and Ingrid firmly believed that if she could use children as bait to bring out his dad from the monster's clutches, the man would return to his periwinkle. Also, this may be a long shot, but hear me out. After It took over Bob's mind and body, it devoured his little girl and just used her form to deceive everyone, as it did with a dead Maddie's body. On the other hand, maybe Pennywise did keep both Bob and Ingrid alive. It used Bob's body as a tangible vessel and controlled Ingrid's mind. Or maybe it just didn't know about clown makeup and needed Bob's help. Jokes aside, there is indeed weight in Ingrid's story. She's just a heartbroken daughter, reluctant to let her father go and let some ghoul's horrible acts smear his legacy. Bob Gray was always Pennywise. Okay, let's rewind to what we know about Bob Gray. Nothing except him performing as Pennywise the Dancing Clown. Yup, that's the cue. It created the human alias of Bob Gray to mix with the locals, curb suspicion, and create an enduring fascination with clowns. The creature was just setting its building blocks and creating a form that would best serve its purpose, because there could be no better way to kidnap children than with some balloons and a Joker dance. This theory thus aligns better with King's idea that Bob was just a mysterious human mask It wore. Interestingly, Bob means to float, and Gray can be symbolic of the sewer water. Ideally, Bob Gray had no existence except serving as a shape of It, which indeed worked as a circus clown. So Bob has always been Pennywise and vice versa. However, this theory has a loose end, Ingrid Kersh. There has been no instance of It reproducing itself tangibly. However, in its spider form, it did lay eggs. Given that the eggs were actually It's and not essentially the spider's, maybe they could hatch into any form their progenitor wanted. And one such form was a human girl, Ingrid. Essentially, that would make her Pennywise or Bob's daughter, and her job at Juniper Hill was a calculated move to supply children to It. On the other hand, she might have been another direct version of the dancing clown, meaning Pennywise and Periwinkle are the same person. The warm, motherly essence Ingrid gave out was just a part of the larger trap for the Losers Club. Bev's meeting an old Mrs. Kersh in the It film and her having an affair with Ronnie's father, which pushed the children to walk into Pennywise's lair, further supports this hypothesis. Marvelous verdict. Alright friends, that's all for today. There are a ton of doubts as to who Bob Gray really was. Statements from the showrunners kind of sparked debate that Bob was actually a person whose body and name it snatched. Series co-creator Jason Fuchs assured us that the series plans to delve into Bob's backstory and what his first encounter with it might have been. That definitely pushes the notion that Bob was someone it met and decided to use. Yet we can't shrug off the idea that Bob and Pennywise have always been the same person, and that their encounter would be explored metaphorically. Whatever path the show takes, one thing is for sure, Bob Gray would no longer be just a name in its world. Moreover, delving into Bob's life would inevitably throw light on Mrs. Kersh, and her real identity is equally intriguing. Right now, the possibilities of either are equally high. Ingrid pushing Lily to wake Pennywise up might be because she wants to save her father. But can we really turn a blind eye to the fact that it was Pennywise itself in Ingrid's form, provoking Lily and her friends to enter the sewer? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. I'll see you in the next one. Bye!